I guess that the Denver airport is like actually a concentration camp, and also maybe aliens are involved, right?
Well, I mean, that kind of like intermingles
deep. That's deep conspiracy DNA.
Oh, I was going to say that intermingles into most conspiracies.
What up, world? And welcome back to another smooth episode of the Amera podcast.
Now my hand signals actually matter.
Smooth episode. Yes, that's a little
smooth,
premature.
It's gonna be great. Everyone that you're on goes perfect.
Yeah, that's right, Fluffy.
That sounded like an allusion to something that didn't go perfect, but that's actually not true.
Today is Wednesday, April 14th, 2021, and we are very excited to have our good friend and content contributor, Nelson Parrish, aka Fluffy, in the house. What's up, dude? How are you?
Not much. I'm doing good. Thank you for yet again having me on for another pod, and I'm happy to contribute what I can.
Our conspiracy correspondent.
Also with us this evening is Mr. John Anderson.
Hi, everybody.
The metro area.
If you hadn't noticed yet.
Yeah. See, I told you there's a whole flow to these intros.
So much for going smooth. I'm sorry. I've messed this whole thing up.
Smooth like a sine curve. Yeah. That's my math reference for the day. Winning.
Just like a baker ices a cake. Initially, it's not smooth at all, but when you're done, that thing is smooth. That thing's Rico Suave. You know what I'm saying?
If you know what you're doing, yeah.
Wait, who's the baker in this metaphor? Are you the baker?
Oh, Blake's definitely the baker.
Okay. Yeah. Wait, so if the podcast is the cake, then what are Nelson and I?
We're icing roses that Blake has delicately placed on top.
Right now, at this moment, you guys are just the icing kind of like splattered in blobs all over the top of the cake.
Well, then, but what's the cake then, if everything is the icing?
The cake is the content. You guys are the icing. And it's up to me
to make us
that
smooth.
Icing all over that content. I'm going to smooth you out all over that content. But how can the content
be independent of us? We got to work on this metaphor.
And I am your host, Blake Mannion, guardrails extraordinaire, and enjoyer of tasty red wine.
Always.
And I'm so happy to be here with you guys tonight. Thank you for joining.
Hey, you too.
Fluffy. So, what brings us here tonight?
That's the question.
Well,
any guesses?
Guesses.
It's mostly for the listeners, but I think you guys know
aliens.
The aliens have brought us
Who
here.
Control our simulation.
Oh, yep. The machine. The Matrix.
Agent Smith.
We're here to give you a cake full experience of conspiracy theories. And
I'm still wondering what the cake is.
The cake is this beautiful content of aliens and conspiracy theories and everything that is weird and unusual and questionable. That is the cake. And you are going to be the icing on that cake. So when the customers come in for a slice, it looks delicious.
And you know what? Conspiracy theory cake is one of those cakes that you cut into and the middle falls out.
Okay, I'm down.
Great, podcast over. That's the whole point I wanted to make.
Have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much.
High fives all around.
Mic drop. So we're going to play a little game. We're going to do a palate cleanser tonight for y'all. We're going to do a little overrated, underrated, least favorite, most favorite via conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
So,
let's go.
If you didn't already know that by the title of this podcast before you clicked on it. So who would like to start?
I'll go first.
Wow. We know who is enthusiastic about this
So
subject.
we'll start. We'll each say underrated first, and then we'll go on to overrated after we all say underrated.
Awesome.
Cool. Fluffy, take it away, man.
All right. So I want to say I don't consider myself a conspiracy theorist or any other term you may use for similar things, but I consider myself open-minded and a curious person, and genuinely, whether I believe it or not, get a lot of enjoyment out of finding out about conspiracy theories and other things like that.
You're kind of like a scholar of conspiracy theories, right? Like, you don't necessarily have to believe in them to know a lot about them.
Or a connoisseur.
I mean, kinda. I mean,
connoisseur will work too.
I consume them on kind of a casual basis, and like I find the content really entertaining.
Yes.
So take that for what it is. And so my underrated, which I actually found to be a really difficult subject matter to select, my underrated conspiracy theory. And so I think the thing that's one of my favorite things about conspiracy theories is the layers of the cake of conspiracy.
Or the onion. Oh, the cake. I get it. The cake's back.
Not everybody likes onions. I think my underrated conspiracy theory, ironically, is probably something that is widely talked about. Living in a simulation, living in the Matrix, living in alternate universes, or having universes intermingling. And like that ties into what is called the Mandela effect. That's a theory. Have you guys heard about this one?
No.
All right. So the Mandela.
I am a little familiar, but please proceed.
Okay. So in the most layman's terms, because I don't understand it well, the Mandela effect started, I think, in the early 2000s. There was somebody who distinctly remembered Nelson Mandela having passed away in the 80s. And then came to find out that he was alive and well in his 90s, but had this like distinct memory of like seeing his funeral and watching his wife give like a heartfelt speech about him and like all these really interesting things. This individual, I think it was a female, kept it to herself, didn't really want to tell anybody, and then went to an event called Dragon Con, which lends to credibility. and
I like how you say that like you don't know exactly what it is.
I have no idea.
This thing, checking notes here, Dragon Con, I guess? I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Come on, we know you've got.
No, no idea. I did not buy chainmail there. And so she ended up finding somebody else that also had a similar recollection of Nelson Mandela having died in the 80s. And then she ended up writing. Yeah.
How does that come up?
I don't know. Not part of the story. She then wrote a blog post about it, I think on Reddit or something like that. And then it kind of started taking off. More and more people started writing about it. And then it just kind of spurred that kind of, it developed the name the Mandela effect, despite being nothing about Mandela, right? And so it's an interesting theory of, is it misremembering or is it a glitch in the
Matrix?
In the Matrix, or is it, there are alternate universes and people have been put back in the wrong universe and they have incorrect memories of the universe that they're currently living in.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so it's kind of, again, I find so many conspiracy theories intertwine in a lot of ways like that. And so my underrated is living in a simulation, tying into the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect I struggle with a lot because I feel like there's a lot of scientific evidence behind the fact that our memory is garbage.
Yeah.
And
totally.
and so I struggle with that one. But the living in a simulation one for me comes around full circle as we get into video games being virtual reality and people putting on headsets and and experiencing the world in such a involved way that isn't real, that are we about to drive into the second virtual reality that we're living in? Like we've as a society have built ourselves into the second simulation, or we're going that direction.
Yeah.
I think that virtual reality video games freak me out. I can't.
I think this whole Matrix concept is like the dystopic novels we read about when we were younger, and now we see some of that stuff coming into fruition. That's how I feel about the Matrix. We're not there yet, but I think we're on our way to perhaps being in more of a simulation, especially as we figure out how to slow down aging and stress on the body. And then, before we know it, everyone's got, what is it called when you have like a different body that you use?
Astro projection.
No. It's one of those
it's like the Avatar thing, right?
Yeah, like it's not Avatar, but yes,
right.
Essentially you have, instead of using your body, you keep your body in a preserved state and use this other body. And then, so that's very Matrix-like, right? So I think we're like heading in that direction, That's how I see it.
Yeah.
Anderson, I cut you off though.
Oh, no. To make kind of a semi-serious point about this, I enjoy the simulation conversation because it allows us to have a conversation about like what is reality, and like because Nelson
Surrogate
there
is
you
the
go.
word.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, totally. Nelson, you were saying like, are we going to go into this other simulation that's like quote unquote not real, but then it's like, well, how do we know that this is real? And that's kind of the point of the simulation. And then you get into the science of it and you're like, well, everything that you're experiencing is like physically that we know of, and I'm sure Tyler would have some things to say about this, but everything that you're experiencing is physically happening in your brain. So like, what is the difference between like, what is any less or more real about a quote unquote simulated reality than this reality that might be simulated anyways? If it's like real to your brain, because ultimately everything is just happening in your brain anyways.
True.
But like, does objective reality matter then? And like, should it matter? Which I actually think is a really interesting question. And so the simulation like gives us a springboard into which to like diagnose our own concepts of our own tangible reality, which I really enjoy doing because I think it breaks down more than we would like it to.
Right. Yeah, you could using that model, then I'm like reshaping the way I see this, and then like the body is the surrogate for the brain, right? And then the perceived world is the simulation running with the surrogate body. Yeah, fascinating.
And like, even when like when you touch something, you're like, okay, well, this is happening on my finger, but it's not. It's happening in your brain as far as like your experience of it. And so then like, if you're touching your desk in this reality or a simulated reality, if the same neurons are firing, then like, who is it any less real? And what does that say about our own reality and our perception of it and things like that? It gets into like pretty deep water pretty quickly, I think.
Fascinating. Tyler's going to listen to this and be like, oh.
Tyler misses all the good ones because he's out probably like trying to beat some poor kid at cards or something.
Or he's handing out vegetables to the neighbors, but yeah.
Or he's handing out vegetables. These are the two speeds of Tyler. The buddy side note that I can tell while Tyler's not here, we had a pond hockey tournament and Tyler is literally lighting incense and blessing the rink and people are like, what is this kid? What are you doing? And then he goes out and he like starts to try and start fights with people. It was like the most insane shit I've ever seen in my life.
Tyler is a great example of yin and yang in
we talked
action.
about that on the last podcast, didn't we?
Was it a pod? We talked about yin and yang recently.
Oh no, we
It was the book club.
It was the book club.
Oh yeah. We participate in that,
ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we're in a book club. We
started
very unsurprisingly read Art of War.
It was the first book. Yeah. So who would like to go second? Should we continue?
Yeah, I guess I'll go. My underrated is the Denver airport conspiracy. I say underrated because I am a shill for anything Colorado, and so if it's Colorado related, I probably find it to be underrated, and so therefore it is an underrated conspiracy theory. And I enjoy the fact that like I can participate it in some more real way than other conspiracies.
Because
also,
you've walked through DIA.
Yeah. Also, well, it's not like I've walked through the Illuminati headquarters, you know? Or have I?
Or have you?
And I really appreciate the fact that the Denver airport has some humor about it. So they have like plaques up talking about which like 10 out of 10 Denver airport, whoever's your marketing person, like God bless that person. Yes. And so, you know, like Jamie, who's been on this podcast,
did the artwork. They probably were the artist.
I think Jamie who was on this podcast was the one who introduced me to it. She's like, "Do you know about the airport conspiracy?" And it's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And
we were probably explain that a little bit, actually, just in case there's anybody listening that doesn't know about it.
Well, so I'll probably get this wrong.
I'm excited to hear John's explanation.
I'll fact check you.
I guess that the Denver airport is like actually a concentration camp, and also maybe aliens are involved, right?
Well, I mean that kind of intermingles into
deep. That's deep conspiracy. DIA.
Oh, I was going to say that intermingles into most conspiracies.
I know that there's some alien shit. Here's the thing.
Same difference.
Why this is wrong. So apparently
let me add on to that real quick. There's more to it than that.
There's so much more.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than that. So there's issues with the original airport that was there and the new one that was built, and the amount of money and the plans. They built like baggage claim tunnels and like rail tunnels out to different terminals that weren't totally finished, and like the original company that built it, their name disappeared from public record. Then there's all kinds of like Nazi symbolism on the artwork throughout the building, and that's just the surface, but that's the basics of it. So there's this conspiracy that like it's an underground shelter that's been there for 3 or 4 decades now, and it's there for like the secret world order to live and house themselves, and like if they want to keep slaves or whatever. But when shit hits the fan, it's like their base.
Yeah,
that's the basic of that conspiracy. Don't ask me how I know.
If I can piggyback on that a little bit and give a little bit more detail,
go for it, and then Anderson, pick up where you left off.
The budget for the airport was originally supposed to be somewhere in the ballpark of like $2 billion. They ended up spending $4 billion.
A public works project going over budget in the United States?
Shocking, I know.
No.
They spent some absorbent amount of money on it was supposed to be a completely automated luggage delivery system, where basically from like weighing them to putting them on the planes, it was supposed to have 0 humans touch your luggage. And it was just a complete waste. None of it worked. The corners were too sharp and too fast. So luggage was being flung everywhere when like the media was coming out to like watch this multi-million, like $200 million luggage system be like displayed, and it just was a complete disaster. They like tried to fling bags at airplanes and missed, and like just a disaster. So like the budget's a huge thing, which again, between people just being, money hungry and corrupt and trying to hide money in budgets. I mean, there's any number of explanations to that. Yeah. The artwork, like Blake mentioned, that's a huge one, because there's like, they say demonic, but they're like gargoyles that are like coming out of luggage and near the luggage carousels and stuff. There's
like burning babies.
There's like there's like children that are like
Isn't that like
forming
a cautionary tale about? I remember seeing that mural and being like, I feel like this was cropped.
It's
It
supposed
was
to
like
have some history to it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
But taken out of context, there's all
Yeah.
it looks very like cult
Well,
Nazi.
Taken out of context is like
Yes.
the essence of what we're doing here.
So, and then of course, how can we forget about the blue Mustang, also known as Blucifer?
Yeah, the devil horse.
Who killed its creator and was contracted and wasn't delivered for like 15 years. So that was actually an original piece of artwork that was contracted by whoever was building DIA. And it wasn't delivered until just like a few years ago. Like anyway, that was weird. Yeah, there's a whole thing about DIA.
Okay, Anderson.
It's my favorite. I don't think I have any more to add. I mean,
Oh, you didn't? Oh, okay.
No, here, I guess I will probably come back to this point, but
You were going to say something about the aliens thing and all that.
oh, yeah. So like my understanding was there's some amount of like let's make this a secret thing, right? Which I don't know why you would put a secret thing and then put an international airport on top of it. It seems like a bad plan if you're going to keep something secret. And so maybe like if you're the United States government or the One World Order or whoever is responsible for this, I imagine that funding isn't really a problem. And so why would you not put this in the middle of Montana where nobody would have any knowledge of it? Seems
well, I think accessibility is probably.
But you're the
key.
One World Order, man. Is accessibility going to be a problem for you? You could probably
it is when the shit's hitting the fan. You got to get someplace now, and that place is Denver, and it's centrally located within the United States, and it's twice the size of the island of Manhattan. Why do you need that much room?
But I feel like
Denver airport is?
Yeah, something like that.
Because
it is pretty spread out, I guess. But if I was a World Order member, I would just fly my private jet straight to the middle of nowhere and land on the cleared landing strip that I had pre-designated years before.
This is what I'm saying. Why would you not go to like fucking Alaska in some mountain range where there are 0 people and go to your goddamn cave and like hide out because you're the One World Order? Why would you put it in the middle of a major metropolis? It makes no sense.
I have to disagree with that. I have to disagree with that 100%. Because if you're talking about a nuclear annihilation or some world-ending event, it doesn't matter how much money you have. If it takes you 15 hours to get to your bunker and you're in fucking New York, you're going to die.
But you can fly to your private bunker. If you could build DIA, like, how much longer does it take in your private plane to fly to Denver than it does to Montana?
Or
maybe
the middle
less
of
time.
Wyoming. Yeah.
Or the middle of Wyoming. And so if you're the One World Order, if you can afford to build an airport in Denver, you can afford to build an airport in fucking Montana.
You wouldn't actually even need an airport. You would just need a flat place to land a plane. That's it.
Or
maybe your helicopter that you own because you're the One World Order, so you probably have access to this type of thing.
See, I would stand under the fact that there's some amount. I don't know. I'd have to disagree. I just do. I think that there's something to do with, I think the location is prime for a number of reasons, despite the fact that it's on top of it's. I think you could make the argument of hide it in plain sight, right? And there's this theory that basically it's a city or a bunker, a huge bunker that's capable of holding, I don't know what they say, hundreds, thousands of people underneath.
So if you can fund that and build that, why wouldn't you put it in Montana?
Because you can't fucking hide the construction in Montana. If you construct something that size in Montana, you'd never be able to hide it. People would fucking notice it. If you're building an enormous international airport and you go over budget by $2 billion and nobody can get into the
So
You control all the satellites. Who
I'm
cares?
gonna cut you guys. You guys are cut
know.
off. You guys are cut off now because we need to continue on to the other points in this conversation. But what I'm
You
getting
can just
at,
cut and paste all my points from this one into the
what
next
I'm
one.
getting
I
at
feel like
is
this
that
is an overcomable problem.
Anderson agrees to disagree. Fluffy agrees to disagree, and we're gonna move on to the next point.
And conspiracy theories.
Yes.
So I'll go next because I am next. That's right.
That
And,
seems very
Circular
logical. Yeah.
logic, because that's what we're doing today.
My underrated conspiracy is are ghosts, basically. So I would consider that. I would consider that a conspiracy.
That's interesting. Blake, you just blew my mind a little bit.
I tend to do
like
that.
it.
You're welcome. So I don't know if you guys. Here's the thing: is I've had some ghost experiences. I definitely believe I'm a spiritual person. I believe in ghosts. I believe in spirits. I've had some things happen that I cannot explain, conscious and unconscious. But there's a TV show that is pretty good, and I'm not really a ghost guy, right? Like I'm not the one that's gonna go like spend the night in the Stanley Hotel. That's not me. I don't like to do that. But my brother Chad got me into. Shout out to Chad. What's up, Chad?
What's up,
brother
Chad?
Got me into this TV show when we were living together. It's called Ghost Adventures. Have you guys watched it?
No.
It's pretty fun. So I'm an audio engineer, and they bring engineers in with them to record video and audio. And they've set up like the Xbox Connect has a sensor system on it, right? And so they modulated like an Xbox Connect to sense presence and activities in like motion detector in rooms. So it's just
Which is
really
what it does
fascinating,
anyway,
right? Exactly. But they dialed it in with their like audio visual software for like tracking on their computer. But
yes.
for me, being an audio engineer, what I find the most fascinating about this TV show is not necessarily like all the visual stuff and like the things that they see, but they record audio of everything they do, and then they have an engineer go back and clean it up and enhance it. And some of the voiceovers that they record are eerie. Like they give me goosebumps, man.
Yes.
And it's not so much the visuals of that TV show, it's the sound that they capture, you know. And there's something to be said for like sound and sound waves and how sound moves. Like us doing this podcast and me speaking right now, I'm projecting sound waves out that bounce and go everywhere. And it's very fascinating. You know, like, are these old sound waves of people who once were alive bouncing around in the air and then being captured on audio?
That'd be cool.
Or are they conscious and happening now, right?
I like that, Blake. I'm glad you like broadened out the category.
I am too. I totally dig that, and I am super familiar with that show thanks to one of my coworkers, Leslie. Shout out to Leslie, also a listener. Yeah, and it is interesting because they do have a bunch of like actual engineers. You're right. I mean, these are people, and they consider themselves. A lot of them consider themselves skeptics, and you know, they are just trying to find the truth. And I Blake, I think that's awesome because I think ghosts and spirits and that whole realm is fascinating.
Mm-hmm. And as
I
we
wish
get
Tyler
better,
was here.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we get better with technology and science, we're starting to see more of a connection. For example, the human body, we now know, gives off a slight magnetic field due to the way we are wired electronically with our nerves in our brain. And the way it's the same concept that we all did in school when we were kids, you know, with the battery and the nail and the wire, and you create a current in a particular motion, and then it creates a magnetic field. And like, we know this is all true now due to science. It's not like you can feel people's magnetic field. We didn't know that's what it was until now, but that's what it is, you know? So it's just fascinating as we get better with technology that we can really start to connect the two.
The human body's basically a big potato clock. Yeah.
True.
We need that as a t-shirt for sure.
I'm really, the artwork possibilities are so good.
All right. Next up.
Overrated.
All right.
Do I go first then? Or do we keep the same order?
Fluffy sounded like he had some shit.
Go for it, Fluffy.
I've
Do
been,
it.
I've been
It's all
kind
you.
of, I've been kind of itching for this. My overrated.
DIA. Round two, let's go. It makes no sense, man.
But then that means he's agreeing. Saying he's agreeing.
I had to show that I had written that down because nobody was going to believe that.
That's amazing.
So as much as I love conspiracy theories,
you are the new Diablo's advocate, Fluffy.
Yeah, seriously.
Kelly's out of the job.
Well, maybe only in this subject matter. I mean, as much as I love conspiracy theories and the ideas behind them and things like that, I struggle with DIA. I can understand.
It's garbage, right?
I can understand why and how conspiracy theories have come out around it because of the budgets. I mean, and I think that that's what makes conspiracy theories so compelling is that, yes, you can see why somebody would think that was possible. I can't get there with the DIA one.
The Occam's razor explanation is that humans are dumb, which is a much more compelling reason or explanation to me than the One World Order wants to have a slave camp in the middle of a major metropolitan area.
John, do you want to expand on that concept?
We are bad at what we do. It's kind of amazing that we haven't blown ourselves up yet. And so typically when you dig down, we have this impulse, and there's been some psychological studies around this. Conspiracy theories exist to explain a scary world that is often just inexplicable. Weird random shit happens all the time, and massive amount. For one of my favorite examples is World War I started because a guy tried to assassinate another guy. He fucked up, went and got a sandwich, walked out of the sandwich shop. The guy who he was trying to assassinate was outside the sandwich shop, and he shot him, and then World War I happened. And so weird random shit happens in history all the time with massive amounts of consequences, and we as people who are supposed to exist in a world of 150 humans and tigers and shit, we need explanations that are coherent and concrete, and in a world of 7 billion people it doesn't exist, but our hardware tries to get there. And oftentimes it's more no, man, just a whole series of fuck ups happened, and that's why it went from $2 billion to $4 billion. Oh, also, by the way, a humongous percentage of public work projects in the United States goes massively over budget and massively over time and have huge mistakes in them. And so this is par for the course for Occam's razor, which is the what that means is that the simplest explanation is usually, if you have two explanations, one is complicated, one is simple, go with the simple one.
Spoiler alert, John's going to be the wet blanket through this entire thing.
I am Captain No Fun.
No, that's not entirely true.
Wait,
he's plenty of fun. But it also, that concept actually resonates with the law of least resistance, right? Or the people who try the least succeed the most, or whatever. That follows the same.
the law of reverse effort. That's one of my favorite ones.
That's what I was looking for. The law of reverse effort. Thank you. My terminology is not on point tonight.
It's late for us. It's 8:30.
I need more wine. That's what happens when you enter the podcast with only a half glass. So going next, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, so speaking of wet blanket, my overrated is Loch Ness. Who cares? Some dinosaur in a pond. It's British. Who cares? Even if it's true, you have some Bronchiosaurus looking thing swimming around. Whatever.
Sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I don't really have any input on that, to be honest.
Because it's overrated, right?
It's overrated. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Boom.
Totally.
Done.
Great.
My next one is the obelisk stunt that happened.
Oh, wait, is that a stunt? Have we proven this?
Oh no, it's not proof, but it's a conspiracy, right? Like the obelisk conspiracy. So I'm calling it an artistic stunt is what I'm calling it. I think that was premeditated. I think that they had these things set up in different parts of the world where they were seen, and once the first one discovered, I think they fell like dominoes, basically. What? Like they started setting them up and then tearing them down.
Are you talking about the monolith?
Or sorry,
yeah.
The monolith.
Okay.
Well, we had a whole debate about this.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what we decided if it was a monolith or an obelisk, but yeah, the monolith, obelisk, statue, artistic thing that happened in Utah.
The one that showed up in Moab, yeah.
That's my overrated.
I think that, from what I heard, there was an artist who took credit for the one that showed up in Utah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I think that there was I think it just spurred copycats would be I never really thought of that as a conspiracy theory, or, I guess everybody has a crazy theory about anything, but
it was a conspiracy theory before the artist came out, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So,
I didn't know that. Somebody came out, but that makes sense because I'm thinking that's definitely an art stunt,
So, and then did you guys, the people who tore it down came in the middle of the night? Did you guys hear about that?
No.
Oh, yeah, we covered that.
Well, yeah. I heard about it, but did something happen more than?
No, it was just, I appreciated it because they basically came down and there was some photographer. He was one of the first photographers there because somehow they leaked found the GPS coordinates on the photo, and that's why people started flocking there
in the metadata.
Yeah, and so the guys, there was a group of guys showed up in the middle of the night. This guy,
they were a bunch of punk asses, right?
They were I think they were locals, outdoor enthusiasts, and basically this photographer was there taking pictures, and they were like, "Hope you got your pictures. This is why you don't leave trash in the desert." and they knocked it down and carried it out because people started destroying the area because people were showing up and just walking all over. And out in that part of the desert, you have that, I'm going to screw up the name, but it's that bio dirt that takes hundreds of thousands of years to develop. And just people were walking all over the area, and people showed up with their dogs. And basically they were like, we don't want this here because this is just going to destroy the area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Got it.
Sorry. So that's
you don't apologize. It's good for the explanation. Explanations are better. Talk to fucking Mulder about that. Scully.
The X-Files is a documentary. You watch that?
Yeah, it is. Let's go.
So, all right, I'll go with my least favorite. I have three least favorite. Two of them are just because I think they're stupid theories. Flat Earth, chemtrails. Yes.
Correct.
I just can't with those.
Full agree.
But my least favorite is 9/11.
Oh, that's a good least favorite.
This is a good least favorite.
Mostly because I struggle with that one, probably more than many of the others.
Oh, as far as its validity?
Yeah. So in high school, John, as you remember, I had a whole project about conspiracy theories, and I chose the 9/11 conspiracy, and I chose to debunk the conspiracy theory. And in a turn of fate, I don't want to say that I've come around, but my mind's been opened up to the possibility, and I don't love that.
I feel like it is entirely plausible that we do not know 100% of the circumstances under which that day happened. Yes. I think it is completely devoid, completely detached from reality to think that the same administration that pulled off the war in Iraq and Katrina and the financial crisis was also competent enough to plan and execute 9/11. I think that's a crazy thing. But do I think that, you know, there was maybe some things that happened on that day that have not been fully disclosed? I think that's entirely plausible. But I think for, like, you know, let's use this very lightly for reasonable reasons.
So and I think that one of the problem with conspiracy theories is that they may start with what was a grain of truth, and they spider out so fast, and like you end up in such a wormhole that, like, I could like you said, I could conceivably see the fact that we don't understand all of the circumstances that took place that day. I can't get behind all of the 9/11 conspiracy theories, mostly because I can't get behind any of all conspiracy theories. But, like, there are some aspects to it that make me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
I was in a class, my, like, capstone history class was, I graduated college, and this was like fall of 2010. And the class was basically compare and contrast the wars in Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And our professor was, like, very well known in Vietnam scholarship, and it was a class of, like, 10, which was pretty unusual for a university like CU. And our first class, we just went around and shared our memories of 9/11.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was a great way to start the class, and it was also just really interesting because we had some people from the East Coast, you know, and it was, like, very different out here and yada yada. And so, yeah, like, that's a whole podcast. That's
that is a whole podcast. There's
I mean,
no doubt about it.
Well, and speaking of, you know, a piece of news that came out today is that Biden is withdrawing troops from Afghanistan by September 11th, 2021, which is the 20th anniversary.
20 years.
Yeah, we have sons who are fighting in Afghanistan, and their fathers fought there.
Right.
And, like, so yeah, it's that's a whole subject. That's like I think it's an underlying theme of our podcast, because it's actually an underlying theme of our life. Osama bin Laden is one of the most successful foreign actors of the 20th century so far.
Yeah, maybe we will dedicate an episode to that content, especially as we approach
on the
anniversary.
Yeah, we'll do that. Least favorite, Blake, what you got?
Q.
Oh yeah, get out of here. Punch that conspiracy right in the dick.
That's my least favorite conspiracy because it's totally fucked up our country. It's fucked up not just our politics and threatened democracy entirely. It's destroyed families and friends. And it is by far my least favorite conspiracy. So, and if the gentleman from Japan is listening, it's coming. It's coming. That's all. Who's next? Fluffy, do you have words on that?
No, not really. I mean, that's such an intense, like you said, there's a multi-series documentary about it. So
exactly.
We kind of had an election about it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yes,
pretty
listeners, if you've not heard yet, there is a fascinating 6-part docuseries on HBO called Q, and it's about the QAnon conspiracies, and it explains a lot of some of the wild things that have happened under the Trump administration, or should I say throughout the Trump administration, and it definitely explains what happened on January 6th, the insurrection at the United States Capitol. So definitely an eye-opener, and I highly recommend everybody watch it.
Sorry, John, what was your least favorite?
It's all of them.
Yeah, he skipped me. I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say it.
My least favorite is all of the conspiracy theories.
Boo.
Womp, 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 wet blanket. Okay.
All right. Well,
Two
move on
thumbs
to the
down
last?
for conspiracy theories as a concept. Like you said, it has fucked up our country. It's a huge problem for humanity. I mean, in some ways, we can say that we lost a lot of people to COVID because of that. So, to make a serious point.
Absolutely, it's we've lost people to COVID because of that. And I want to bring up something that Fluffy, you mentioned before this podcast that we almost forgot to talk about. And I don't want to talk about it for too long. I want to get into our most favorite category and wrap this up. But Fluffy, you mentioned, are conspiracy theories more prevalent in the United States right now?
Yeah.
And I have to say that I think they are. I think that our culture, which I think has been tied to that that Western male dominant, patriarchy power, that's basically poisoning the country right now.
As I'm sure Tyler would say, it all comes back to the patriarchy, and let's be clear that we should smash the patriarchy and fuck the patriarchy. But I would say I think there's a greater explanatory power in our individualistic part of our society, which maybe goes into patriarchy a little bit too. But I think it's also maybe a little bit different, where it's like, I don't need to listen to the experts. I can make decisions for myself. And you're like, okay, but the world is complicated and maybe you should listen to them. Also, like, it's not just about you. Like, you live in a society, and so it's important to factor in other people in your thinking. And so maybe there, but I also would push back a little bit on myself, and I think that the narrative of America being an individualistic society is only half the picture, and we actually have a lot of collectivism in ours too, and I think we're a lot of both. Like, I think some countries average in between, and I think we're a lot of the both of them. And so as far as, and then I think it also has to do with the particular political moment that we're dealing with. I also think that our devotion to free speech and what free speech, the definition of free speech has become. I mean, literally, I was watching, and maybe this is not a great example, but I was watching Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy, talk, and he was like, we're gonna start a free speech social media where you can't swear and you can't take the Lord's name in vain. And it was like, I mean, literally, that was like a direct quote, and it's like,
nailed it.
Yeah. Like, wait, what? And so, like, what are words, at this point? So I think that like this very particular moment that we're dealing with, and that goes back also to like our media ecosystem and the free speech nature of our ecosystem. Like, you literally, the government would come for you in Great Britain if you were doing this kind of shit on Fox News. So as we saw with fucking Piers Morgan, he like had a temper tantrum on their like Good Morning Britain or whatever the fuck, and walked off the set because of Meghan Markle. Yep. And then the government opened an investigation into him because a bunch of people complained. And like, that honestly makes me uncomfortable as an American, because I think free speech is important, but I also think everybody has deemed my free speech means that I can do whatever I want to in the world. And it's like, no, that's not what free speech means.
Right. The definition of that, I think, would be like a total.
It's. I think it's anarchy. It's what the philosophers describe as a state of nature. It's basically just like, if I have the power to do it, I'm going to do it. And if you don't have the power to resist me, you're not going to be able to resist me. And that's just how it fucking works.
I don't know how we got. Yeah. I don't know how we got so far off the rails in a conspiracy theory podcast here.
We got back to Mike Lindell. That's very relevant in a conspiracy podcast.
Well, I just wanted to bring it back around to what Blake, you brought up initially is this a uniquely American thing or predominantly an American thing to have conspiracy theories? And for me, I guess my answer is just that I don't know. I think maybe thinking that it's a uniquely American thing might be an American way of thinking.
Yeah, it's
so
possible.
That's kind of a fun
But if you
circle
look
to go around in. But
if you look at other countries like politics, it's not as like, there's a lot of Western countries that are like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, 100%. But like if you but I think there's plenty of conspiracy theories
too much
that
about that.
political.
Before we talk too much about that, it was more prevalent in the United States, not unique to just
okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, that's different enough that the
Yeah. You're right.
Should we do most favorites?
So Fluffy is I don't know. Fair enough.
Yeah, basically.
Cool.
Good answer.
Yeah.
My favorite, and the TV show has a little bit to do with it. Ancient Aliens. Let's do it.
Yeah, I fucking told you. I told you.
Let's do it. I'm so in.
Anderson called it. Anderson said he'd bring it up.
Before you got on, I was like, I guarantee you he says Ancient Aliens.
How can you not? It makes sense.
It's true.
It's got logic behind it. You want to put Ancient Aliens up next to religion? I'll sign me up for Ancient Aliens all day long. It makes so much more sense.
I want all ancient religion to just be encounters with aliens, like Stargate, right? Like that's basically the plot of Stargate, and I want that so badly.
Well, and
so badly.
And so, for like, the reality is we don't know what happened to some major cultures back in the day, and a lot of their cultures were based around like getting to the stars or like getting into the afterlife, and like the knowledge that they gained. I'm in Ancient Aliens.
I love that. I'm into that. I'm super into that.
No, there's definitely.
I almost put that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like that show touches on ancient wonders and technology and some stuff that is often debated about how it happened, even to this day. So it's definitely a fascinating show to watch.
That being said, I could also conceivably see myself sitting down with an expert in some whatever field that is that they're discussing in that particular day, and them having counter arguments, and me walking away going, "Oh yeah, that's totally bogus." Yeah. So my ignorance allows me to love that conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
I just want it to be true. That's one of the few conspiracy theories I just really want.
I want it to be true
I want it to.
Just to fight religion, right?
Well,
like a little bit,
sort of. What I would say is that, and it goes back to conspiracy theories too, is that I think basically everything has a reasonable, like, scientific explanation, and it's more about how we talk about it. So, like, a conspiracy theory is a set of facts that are already known, but said in a conspiratorial tone with conspiratorial music behind it, and everybody's like, "It's a conspiracy," and it's like, no, actually, that's just like a series of facts that seem suspicious because someone told you to, it was suspicious looking. But I really like the idea of, okay, all of these like mystic, unexplainable things, there's a totally reasonable explanation
for it, and it's an alien.
Yeah. I mean, number one, cool, space is cool, right? Number two, there is like some amount of my like wet blanket impulse in there that's just like, there's a reasonable explanation. I would even
argue that it falls onto your argument of the simplest explanation is
right.
It's the like, right one, right? Like,
and it also goes back to I have a visceral emotional response to the idea that there is something that exists outside of the knowable universe. So like a God that we are just, no matter how hard we try, we're never going to get to know. I find that to be spiritually abhorrent. Like, my spirituality is basically, we are an exploded star that has become conscious, and now we as members and citizens of the universe get to explain the universe to the universe. And so the answer to why are we here is truth. And so the like idea that we can take all of these mystic traditions of humanity and explain it in that worldview really just tickles, to use a religious term, it tickles my faith. Like it really, I really would love that to be the way that the universe works.
Wasn't it Alan Watts that said, "We are the universe trying to understand itself"?
Carl Sagan, I believe, said that. And so Alan Watts said very similar things, but I think that the like bumper sticker quote, I actually have a magnet of that, because yeah, we are the universe trying to get to know itself, which I think is like absolutely beautiful. And that is also one of the reasons why conspiracy theories fucking offend me, because they make that pursuit more difficult. And so it's like a throwing sand in the eyes of the pursuit of truth. And it's like a perverted impulse of the pursuit of truth, it feels like. And so, you know,
that is
Occam's razor, baby.
It's an Alan Watts quote, by the way.
Okay, we're gonna do a Google battle.
You're gonna drop that mic right there, Blake? You're gonna drop that mic?
I just Googled it.
All right. Well, while John's Googling, Blake, do you want to... I want to hear your favorite.
So, Carl Sagan, the cosmos is within us. We are made of star stuff. We are a way for the universe to know itself. I'm sure, I mean...
What?
Knowing
John,
their work,
aren't they both from the same time period?
Like yeah, it's the same concept, right? That goes back to like ancient Eastern philosophy.
Well,
so,
and John, as you and I discussed,
we can both be right
independently. What was it that there are no more unique ideas, just unique combinations? I think that explains that very well.
I do too. Yeah. So and like, there's a great story of Newton and some, like, I think a German scientist independently invented calculus at the same time, but we give him credit to Newton because he was a better marketer, basically. And he was able to like apply calculus to something useful. But
Albert
you know,
Einstein and Tesla too make that same comparisons.
Right. These things. And so there's kind of like, to use an Expanse reference, there's kind of a nutrient grain that you follow, because hopefully there are known contours to the universe that are observable. And so if you're paying attention, multiple people can observe them at the same time, which gets into some pretty cool, like, you know, how individual are we, or is it, you know, how much should we look at ourselves as a collective almost organism?
Just a bunch of ants running around.
That's another conspiracy, right? That like we're lizard people, or there are lizard people.
Oh. There's a conspiracy theory about everything. So I mean,
and the frogs are getting.
That is a conspiracy.
We're just living on a marble that's being played with by alien children.
Yo.
You know?
MIB is such a good movie.
Yes, it is.
I rewatched it recently, and it's such a good movie.
It's pretty funny.
Also, the Men in Black, not the movie, but that is also a subject matter for another conspiracy.
Fascinating.
Oh, like a real one? Oh, that actually, that we should bring this back, because I'm realizing that we haven't wrapped this up yet.
No, I'm trying.
Should I go? Can I go?
Yeah.
Okay, so mine is Area 51. It's just the OG conspiracy theory, right? Like, it's got everything you want. It's got aliens. It's got advanced technology. It's got government cover-ups. Like, it hits all of the great notes of a conspiracy, and I enjoy all of it. Also, I want it to be happening, right? Like, I'm rooting for it to be true. And so I think it would be super cool if we had some fucking alien technology. I'd like to get some more of that alien technology. So, you know, I'm down with that. And like, it's a great Tony Hawk level for those of us who remember Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, I think it is.
I was going to say who are
not
still
going to
playing.
be able to verify that.
I'm pretty sure because they remade it, so I played it fairly recently, and it holds up. It's a good level.
I mean, that's a great game. That's classic. Tony Hawk
it's a
Pro Skater.
classic
Oh
game.
man, I've wasted a lot of hours of my life playing that game.
I remember Pat and I were doing a project on space, and we needed to in the 5th grade, and we needed to build like a lander out of Legos or some shit, and we played Tony Hawk Pro Skater instead. Nice. And then we had to like.
I was trying to find where that was coming.
Well, it had an Aliens reference, and it also Tony Hawk Pro Skater. So, and it was a Pat reference, which we got to factually get into the podcast.
I think that's conspiracy. I think you were abducted. Actually, I think that's conspiracy.
Am I even myself, or was I?
And that's
replaced?
Your cover-up story, exactly. So this leads into mine, which is UFOs. Basically, same thing, you know.
Yeah,
it's so funny.
Baby.
We all did aliens.
I think the reality is, it's what we know now is that the reality is there's a very real possibility that there's other life within our universe, right?
Yeah,
I think it's surprising if there's
enormous.
Not.
It would be shocking if it weren't.
Yep.
So
let's go.
So there was recently an article written. I think it was like an op-ed in the New York Times, basically saying, looking for aliens is a bad idea.
Yeah, because we're gonna get colonized. They're gonna treat us as
exactly.
Yeah, pigs. We're gonna get boned by aliens.
And so it's just so fascinating. It's like, well, but if they do exist, like for example, I just want to point out, and I mentioned this before in another podcast, but there's been several UFO sightings by commercial aircraft flying from between Florida and Arizona, I think, or New Mexico and Arizona. And there's been similar reports of the same type of UFO objects, and you can listen to these calls, and they're real. Like U.S. Airlines confirmed that was a call from that flight, but they won't talk anymore on the subject. Like, you have to talk to the FBI. And so it's just like, wow, that's pretty serious. The
FBI isn't real chatty, by the way.
Yeah. No, they're not. They're not famous for that.
It's like, wow. So we actually have commercial pilots now saying and putting out on record from their flight, because they record the flights, right? The black box or whatever. And so this information is out there. It's been confirmed by the pilots and the airlines. And now you have to talk to the FBI about it, and there's no further comment. It's just like, what is going on?
The military's come out and admitted that they've released declassified information that, you know, they don't know what it was that they've caught on video or on radar or whatever it was. So yeah, it is interesting that like some of that's coming back around. Like it's less hidden. Although I was watching an interview. One of my favorite actors, Simon Pegg, he did a movie about Area 51. And he was like, you know, I think the fact that maybe people see UFOs around a U.S. Army base that has experimental aircraft, maybe it's just military planes.
Occam's razor, baby. Is it aliens that we don't know about? Or is it just a next-gen aircraft? Boy, I don't know. But I really want it to be aliens.
Yeah, man.
I do too.
Well, I have a feeling we're gonna continue to learn some more cool stuff about that, because it seems like the information is accelerating, right? Like, I feel like there's this parabolic kind of curve happening with like information and experiences happening specifically around aliens. So I'm excited. to see.
I appreciate your math term too.
You're welcome.
Parabolic. Let's go, baby.
Yeah.
Parabola.
Just like my appetite for some food and some more wine right now. So on that note, Fluffy, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. This has been, well, maybe my favorite pod, because it didn't require me doing any other prior research. I didn't have to read a couple of recent event articles or anything like that.
Plus, nice. It's more fun, especially it's way more fun than what we were going to cover tonight. So
yeah, good palate cleanser.
Good palate cleanser. Definitely. I would like to let our listeners know that we have a new website, and we are also on several new streaming platforms, including Alexa and Amazon, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, all kinds of cool stuff. So check that out. Check out the new website. Please give us a like, leave us a rating, because we need some more of those, especially on these new platforms. And thank you very much for your time this evening.
For those of you who are upset about your informative political podcast being completely taken over, normal scheduling will be resumed in the next podcast.
I mean, maybe it's a week-to-week thing with us. And I just want to leave everybody with a question to ponder, which is Independence Day, great movie or greatest movie? Godspeed, everybody.
I just watched that. I
did too recently. It's so good. It's such a good movie.
Not a question. Greatest movie ever.
When he pops that hatch and he punches that alien, he's like, "Welcome to Earth.
Welcome to Earth." Bam.
It's so good.
I still get teared up from the stupid president's speech.
I'm like, such a good speech.
It's so good.
So
you want to go through a fucking wall after that speech.
Maybe that's the reason aliens haven't colonized us yet, is because of that movie.
They're like, yo, we saw what happened to the last folks, and they're like, no, man.
No.
Those guys are crazy. Not fucking worth it.
I'm happy to announce that this cake has been iced.